All right, welcome everyone. My name is Dwight Duffie, and in this tutorial, we're going to be looking at just the basics or the essentials of Microsoft Excel. It doesn't really matter what version of Excel we're running when we're talking about the basics. Excel hasn't really changed all that much. You could be running Office 2003 or 2007, 2013, or even Office 365. It doesn't really matter, I don't think, as far as the essentials or basics go. Um, Down here in the corner, it probably defaults at 100%. One of the first things I do is zoom in like I had it, maybe to something like 200 or even 230%, just to make it a little bit easier to see what's going on. So in a spreadsheet we have cells, the intersection of a column and a row, like I'm in C5 here, we refer to as a cell, and every cell has a unique address. In this case, this address would be C5. And as a numbers processor, as a program for processing numbers, um, we wouldn't be surprised to find that if I do something like 0.5 and then 1, that there's enough of a pattern there that Excel, if I grab the corner in the handle and move down, that Excel could extend those values out. Or if I type something like Jan, Feb, that Excel's smart enough to extend that out. Or if I had something like first QTR, again, if I grab the corner and drag it out, Excel is going to be smart enough to extend these ranges. These are very common sort of financial sorts of things. If I type in just first and drag that down, again, you can see that it's smart enough to go second, third, fourth, and so on. All right, so let's take a look at a simple payroll type problem. I'm going to put in some names. Tina Johnson, Wes Smith, and Ray Anderson. So if I wanted to change the column width, one of the things I can do that's really easy is just double click between A and B, and that will widen that out. So let's say we want to put in hours worked and rate of pay, or maybe we should do it the other way, rate of pay and hours worked, and then I want to calculate the total, and then I want to calculate the percent. Then I'm going to have a spot down here where I can also calculate the sort of grand total. All right, so this will be a good illustration of just the basics of kind of working in Excel. So if I put in a number like 12.50 an hour, you'll notice that it kind of knocks the 12.50 to 12.5. Or if I put in something like 8.00, it'll change it to 8. So we lose the trailing zeros on decimal places. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this. One of the things I can do is, if I'm thinking ahead, I could highlight this range and I could select on currency here, which is under the general tab. And now when I type in 12.50 or $8 an hour or 22.75 an hour, it's going to format it in a currency format. The other nice thing about doing this is when we will operate formulas on these values, for the total, for example, it will know to make the total also currency because the rate was currency. So sometimes it's better to get the values formatted sooner than later. Okay, so Tina is going to work, say, 16 hours, and Wes is going to work 40 hours, and Ray is going to work 20 hours. So if I wanted to calculate the total pay for Tina, then I'm going to need a formula. So equal, and then I'm playing Battleship, B2 times, that's the asterisk, times C2. If I hit enter, it calculates that the pay for Tina is 200. And now what I can do is I can click on that value, and by the way, if I hit the F2 key up on the keyboard up at the very top, the F2, it'll actually show this as an address. So if I need to modify or change my formula, I can do so. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. But what I want to do is I want to grab the corner, which is the little, it's kind of solid plus here, and if I drag that down, it'll copy those addresses down so that the B2 that we saw there becomes B3 here, and then B4 here. So when we copy down, as we copy down, the numbers get bigger. If we copy across, then the letters get bigger. If we copy up, the numbers get smaller. All right, so to calculate the total, there's actually three ways to do this. I could do this the old-fashioned way and earn it. I could say equal D2 plus D3 plus D4. And everybody should do that at least once to see how the plus formula works. Gives me 975. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. So I'm going to highlight it, hit delete. I could also use a function here, and I could say equal sum, parentheses. I could do a range. I could say D2 colon D4, parentheses. And it takes that range and will total that up. And then the most, I guess, sophisticated way to do this would be to highlight the range inclusive of where you want the total to go. You don't even have to highlight the range actually. You could actually just highlight the cell below a range that you want to total. So I've selected D6 here, and then up somewhere in the right top corner you'll find auto sum. There's actually different things that you can actually auto. You can auto average or max or min and other functions, but I'm going to just click on the auto sum, and it actually writes the formula for me, and then if I hit enter, it goes ahead and totals that up. So pretty slick. And then of course if I change my values here, let's say I change this from 16 hours to 8 hours, then it's going to update my total, and that's kind of the whole point of the spreadsheet, is that the values can be updated. All right, so to calculate a percentage here, I would want to take the small value, which in this case is the 100 value, and divide it by the large value, which is the total. Percent is almost always calculated by taking small divided by large. Number of hits, divided by the number of at-bats, for example, to get a batting average. Or a score in a test divided by the total points possible. Again, the smaller number divided by the larger number. So I'm going to go ahead and say equal, and I'm going to go D2, which is my smaller number, and then the slash for divide. And then when I divide by 875, I'm going to put a $ in front of the D and a $ in front of the 6. And what's going to happen is then when I copy this formula down, the D2 becomes D3, becomes D4, but the D6 stays the same. So we don't end up dividing by D7 and D8 respectively and getting a divide by 0 error. So I get something like 11% there. If I grab the corner and drag down all the way, it'll give me values all the way down to 1, which would be 100%. Go ahead and get rid of the 0. Then I'm going to highlight these cells, and then I would click on percent to multiply by 100 and make it look a little nicer. And then I could add in some decimal places right here where it says increase decimal places. Get that to the spot, or decrease to the spot that we like. All right, and just like in word processing, we have all sort of the same formatting features. I could highlight a range here and maybe hold the control and highlight a range across here. And then I could select B for bold. I could select the color that I want. I could select, the font, the style, the size. Make that italicized. All right, so that gives us kind of a good introduction to sort of the basics of Excel. Real handy for working with numeric or quantitative data. We call the values here and across the top, we call those labels, and then we call these numbers, including the formulas or functions, we call those values. All right, so I think that's a good introduction to Excel, just to kind of get us warmed up and get us started.